Welcome to the C Files. You know, the American producer, the entrepreneur, and employee is an economic powerhouse. Think for a moment the endurance it takes for the American citizen to live on 30 to 40% of their paycheck, sometimes working two jobs and overtime to have enough money to provide for their family, to put food on the table and a roof over their head and transportation to get to work and back and take care of other things, clothes on their back, while the other 70% of their paycheck goes to fraud, corrupt politicians and bureaucrats, corrupt NGOs that are funneling money back to corrupt politicians and bureaucrats, endless wars, billions of dollars of free giveaways to other countries, money laundering, money mismanagement, overpayments for contracts and goods and services to the federal government, all of the waste, fraud, and abuse, all of the money that's going offshore to other countries, and the heavy tariffs that have been laid by other countries onto the backs, the burden of the American producer. Think of the endurance it has taken my entire lifetime for people to endure that and yet still be productive and yet still continue working themselves to the bone, working themselves into the grave. So everybody else can feed off the trough. And yet they still provide for their families. They endure and they don't stop. They keep going no matter how hard it gets. The American people are an economic powerhouse. So imagine for a moment what the American people are capable of economically when the burden of paying for everybody else in the world is taken away. And it forces those other countries to get off of their lazy assets and start providing for their own families, and start providing for their own national defense, and start providing for their own economic prosperity, and not feeding off of the burden that the American people bear to do it for them. Imagine the productivity and the economic powerhouse that will be unleashed upon the world by the American producer when they are economically free and not under an economic form of slavery, i.e., taxes. Think about it. You pay federal income tax, state income tax, sales tax, property tax. You pay Medicare tax. You pay Social Security. Your paycheck's gone. And then the politicians go to Washington, D.C. and demand more. Oh, you American people, you're not producing enough. Oh, you're not paying enough taxes. We want more taxes from you. We want to bury you 6 feet under the ground under taxes. Those of you who don't understand what has happened politically in the United States with this movement, this MAGA movement, let me help you understand it. The American people are fed up with being dumped on by the rest of the world and by their own politicians and by their own bureaucrats. The American middle class has had it. They're fed up to here. And they're not going to take it any longer. For those of you who are up in arms and going into panic mode because, oh, the stock market crashed today, took a big crash because of the Trump tariffs. Wake up and smell the coffee. The globalists want to throw a tantrum. And the way they throw their little tantrum, because they're not getting their way, they're not burying the American people under this burden that they want to bury us under. They're not getting that, so they're going to throw a child tantrum like a toddler would do by crashing it's not really crashed, but you know what I'm saying, the stock market. Then throw your tantrum. We're not budging. Do you understand? And you other countries, they're fussing. Oh, you're putting tariffs on us. You're putting tariffs on us. Yeah, like I said before, you're going to have to get off your lazy asset and provide for your own means, your own way. Stop depending upon the American producer to do it for you. We're not going to do it anymore. Oh, and by the way, we want some of that money back. You need to start paying us back. So you're going to have to start paying some tariffs. Because you're not going to put this burden on us anymore. Everybody wants to flood our borders, southern borders, northern border. And then come here, what? To be someone who's productive? No. To feed off the trough of the working people in this country. Sit on their lazy butts and feed off of our trough. So you're getting deported. Not going to feed off our trough anymore. And, oh, those of you who came here to take us down, oh, well, yeah, you're being deported. People are disappearing off the streets because of the Trump administration. Yeah, they're called criminals, murderers, rapists, robbers, burglars. Yeah, they're disappearing. I saw one comment, well, I guess El Salvador is Trump's new concentration camp. Okay, anyone who says that is completely, utterly clueless as to what's happening. There are biblical principles when it comes to economics. There are biblical principles when it comes to finances. And the reason the American people are suffering so heavily under the financial burden they're under right now is because we elected people that completely ignored those biblical principles. We get a guy in that people think is this horrible, evil person. And what does he do? He starts implementing some biblical principles into our economic system. Lo and behold, the burden on the American people is about to be lifted. And let the globalists throw their tantrum with the stock market. It'll recover. Once they realize that we're not going to play their game, once they realize that we understand the stock market is a long-term deal, not a short-term deal, but, you know, the really, really rich people and the brokers in the stock exchange, you know, they play the short-term game, so they can just go ahead and take that loss since they are part of what put the burden on us. It'll steadily go up. It always has. I've lived over 6 decades on this earth, and I've watched the stock market go up and go down and go up and go down and have these irrational emotional reactions to stuff and go down. And then when everybody gets over their emotional temper tantrum, lo and behold, it starts to recover. The powerhouse, the economic powerhouse that's about to be unleashed on the world because the burden is about to be taken off of the American people, and they're going to be freed up to create, to build businesses, to be entrepreneurs, to be employees who produce amazing, high quality products. It's going to shock the world. Because we've been trying to do that under dire circumstances. When those circumstances are taken away, it's going to be like the race horse, the horse in the Derby that's inside the gate, ready to go, ready to take off. And those gates open and that horse shoots out of that gate to hit that track. That's what it's going to be like. The American producer is going to shoot out of that gate and take off like a rocket. And the world is going to marvel over what America is able to produce. I truly believe that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on the C-Files.